There is a larger plan. We've heard those comments over time, but it doesn't become real unless you break it down and understand what that could mean. Now, within the Christian paradigm, it's somewhat pathetic. This old guy who can't figure out how to speak to Christians despite the use of cell phones and all of that has some mysterious plan for children being raped and all this stuff. And it's a sickening thought to consider that this is anyone's plot. Like so-and-so's child will be hit by a bus, let's see, Monday, how about 10 a.m.? All powerful, could write a different plot, so-and-so's child wins $1 million and becomes a great, kind Christian, So in that, it's a sickening, disgusting idea that there's a grand plan by some old geezer who hasn't even learned to use a cell phone. But that's, of course, not a big enough plan. If we take a step back, if you look at the very beginning of life, and you realize that some billions of years ago, that there was nothing. And now there's an expanding universe with billions of species just on this planet alone, and billions of life forms within those species. You can see that life has a tremendous track record for getting bigger, getting longer, meaning time is long and size is big or small. So there's more time than there's ever been today. And there's more space than there's ever been today. And there's more complexity than there's ever been today. So for billions of years, life has been getting more complex, bigger, and longer. Now, within the human ego framework, we're looking from the perspective of one of those forms. And from that perspective, what feels comfortable, pleasurable, etc., is good. And what feels uncomfortable, unpleasurable is bad. And cults feel good, right? When everyone agrees and says, oh yeah, we all know we're all capitalists, right? We're all Americans, that feels good. Why? Because everyone's doing it. It's a nice feeling when everyone's in agreement. And cults are good for that because, well, you don't have to fight if everyone says the exact same thing. You don't have to think, right? That's a relief, right? You don't have to work things out. And, everyone's going to do the same thing, so it's predictable. You don't have to be afraid of the unknown. It's wonderful. It feels great. But then life happens. Life's got a bigger plan than maintaining a given cult for very long. It's the nature of small things that they cannot hold and contain things that are bigger than them, right? You can't fit a house inside a finger. You can't fit a universe into a human ego. And what that means, in the cycle of life is that, life is getting bigger, longer, and more complex, more creative. And life is also getting more successful and having more fun. Life is. I'm not saying you and I are. I'm saying life is, right? It's incredibly exuberant to go from something the size of a pea to trillions upon trillions of stars and planets capable of some form of life that are some form of life. Right? Life is a dynamic cycle, right? In many, many different iterations. Well, there have been, according to current anthropologists, about 10,000 cultures and languages in human history. Well, 95% of them are extinct. If we look at archaeologists or scientists looking at evolution in different forms, we can see that most of all of the species on the human planet, whether it's the dinosaurs or something, that 99% of all species are also extinct or radically transformed. And so if we look at the data, if we look at the statistics, that there's a 99% chance that what we see here in our world today will be extinct or radically transformed, sometime in the next billion years, something like that. And what's also clear is that life brings replacements, right? It's not just going extinct. There's this constant creative process. But if you look at life itself, it has always got bigger. It has always got longer. It has always got more complex. Now, that complexity, that some of that size comes from sex, right? Life creates something, and then, lo and behold, it divides it into bits. It divides the something into two or more things. Now and then as those diverge in time and space, they evolve, they iterate differently, right? Because there's a dynamic response between each form and its ecology, its surrounding energy pattern. So as things move apart, they grow different and they become distinct. That's how life becomes more complex. Now then, those things, some of them meet up again later and have sex. Sex is a coming together of two distinct patterns. And if it's good sex, if life is lucky, the two different forms that come together explode into what's called a synergy, a new form that didn't exist before. Now there's a new pattern of energy, right? And now that new pattern of energy can meet other patterns of energy and explode into a new form again. This is life's little trick for turning something into many more things, and many more things into many more things, right? As long as life keeps having sex with itself, right, the ultimate masturbation, then voila, the universe and will just keep getting more complex, more diverse, for as long as it keeps having sex with itself. So that's life's little trick, right? Now, the thing to think of from life's perspective is that it's all life, right? Your worst enemy, your best friend, the carrot, the potato, the arsenic, the medicine, it's all life. And what human beings have been up to for some thousands of years, what human beings and human animals have been up to is concocting and mixing things at an accelerated rate. You could see that the human form of life, animal or being, right, empathy or sociopath, they have both been busy combining things, right? The chemist, the scientist has basically been an accelerating sex machine for life, a sex function, right? You see the human being doing all kinds of interesting things. What if we separate this and distill it like this and do like this and do like this and then do like this, right? Well, then something new is born. What if we add this color? Now there's all these different colors born. So human beings have been, taking an inspirational, an aspirational and inspirational version of life and speeding it up. Like, how many things can we make? How many people can we make? How many buildings can we make? How many this can we make? How many chemicals can we make? So you could say that life struck it big with human beings, because human beings do that more efficiently than anything we know, right? Well, there's 99% of reality that we do not know and do not know that we do not know. But of the little piece of reality that we know, the little piece of life that we're aware of, we're doing it, we're creating more, right? More this, a nuclear bomb, a genetically modified seed, a tape recorder, right? A CD, a bit of music, a sound like this. We've just been taking life and exploding it into distinctions and then combining them, fusion food and fusion music and fusion this. We have just been having sex and facilitating the sex between energy more prolifically than anything that we know, right? So life struck it big with the human body and imagination, etc., because life gets more complex faster in human territory than in many others. Now, we have also been busily destroying things at the same time. As you create a new form, you destroy its old form. And we're learning about that, right? But we've also moved into territory in the last, decades, a few decades, where we may have sex with other planets. And what I mean by that is, it takes a tremendous amount of skill. We're the only life form on the planet that we know of that's capable of leaving orbit, right? To break out of this, self-centeredness, right? This gravitational pull to focus on me and us here on the planet and go out there, right? And as we bring patterns of energy, patterns of matter and energy on this planet to other planets, statistically speaking, if we can touch, 1,000 planets and we bring 1 million different complex life forms, some of those are going to iterate, right? Some of those planets will become different because we existed, right? We will inseminate a planet with a plant that can grow on Mars, with a robot that will turn so-and-so into an atmosphere that produces a planet that life can grow on. Or we're going to bring patterns of energy that were birthed here to other locations that will change those locations and make them new. In other words, the human body and mind is on its way to facilitating interplanetary sex. Right? Stuff from here combining with stuff on another planet to create something new that didn't exist and that wouldn't have existed without us. In that sense, the human body is the sex organ of planet Earth. To take energy here, bring it there, and engage. And we're learning how to have sex with other planets because, if we don't create a sustainable ecology on another planet, well, then it's a failed attempt, right? We didn't give birth, right? Can we do that? Well, that is in the possibility field, right? And life would have struck it big, right? If we can take sustainable life on Earth and generate sustainable life on 1, 2, 3 planets sometime in the next trillion years, well, life will have struck it big, right? And even in the next million years would be, pretty exciting in life's trajectory, a great success for life. Well, that's life's perspective on things, right? And as the life in a carrot becomes life in a human being, as life in a cow becomes life in a human being, life is a winner either way. Life is the cow, life is the human, life is the tree, life is the car, life is the gasoline. Life is life, right? Reality is reality. All that is identifies not with one little thing, but with all that is. And life doesn't have to be perfect. It's never been perfect within the framework of the human mind. It doesn't have to be. It just has to be creating, has to be iterating. Now, on that level, everything has a purpose. That purpose through a lens of values is dualistic, right? Somebody rapes someone. How horrible, we say. That's not how it's done in our cult, right? But as an animal, right, that's the way it's generally been done, right? Life says your body is primed for production right now. Go and do this. We look at the implications. Well, if you look closely, like what happens when someone is raped? Well, there's a couple of things. For example, when I was raped, I learned that nobody wanted to go into pain. I learned that the organization that I was, pursuing and trying to explore, the Human Awareness Institute, wasn't that interested in human awareness when it came to looking at these shadow things and these politically incorrect things, and so I learned how disintegrated, how flaky so much of the story was. And if you then, well, this is horrible, right? Well, I also learned then I have to create a better story, a new story, meaning this narrative to you, right, is partly coming out of an awareness of just how much I got it wrong, right? Which also comes out of an awareness of just how much our culture gets it wrong, right? But if you don't open up, like if there isn't a disturbing event to tell you how much you, and by extension those around you, are getting it wrong, what motivates the effort to make it right? You see, and so there's a cycle. There's a cycle around trauma, there's a cycle around pain, where the imperfection of whatever is going on, and nothing is perfect, creates pain. The pain creates awareness. The pain and awareness leads to reaction. The pain, the reaction, the awareness leads to vision. The vision and the motivation of the pain leads to iteration. The iteration leads eventually to excellence. The excellence leads to well-being. The well-being leads to sleep, right? It feels great. Who wants to think? Who wants to create? Feels wonderful. Let's just enjoy. The sleep, the enjoyment leads to blindness. The blindness leads to failure. The failure leads to pain, and then it iterates again, right? And so in that sense, right, it is the flaw that leads to something better. And as life, this is perfect. Like this is how things have gotten better for billions of years, right? There's a drive for something more. And when we don't grow and do and reach for our potential, it starts to feel horrible, boring, painful. So we have to keep growing, right? And then when we keep growing and we keep learning in some way, then it gets exciting, right? And pleasurable, right? So we have a unique cultural perspective that says this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. But that's not life's perspective. It's an important perspective because it's ours, right? It's our cult's. But it's not life's perspective, right? The plan, to the extent that there is a plan, is to get bigger, is to get longer, is to get more complex, is to expand the possibility field in all directions. Possibility fields always expand in all directions. That means they get worse from the perspective of what's worse, and they get better from the perspective of, what we think is good, right? When a possibility field expands, it gets bigger in all directions. Means it's possible for it to be even more horrible than it is, and it's possible to be even better than it is, and that expands symmetrically. Possibility fields radiate out in all directions, and possibility fields get bigger as life becomes more complex. If we are going in the direction that we consider bad, painful, negative, destructive, etc., right, then that expansion is a nightmare, is a trauma, is horrific, and may or may not lead to failure and death. Right? But in terms of a larger plan, it is a success for life when the possibility field expands. There are more and more things that can have sex, that can interact with more and more things to create more and more things, right? And in that possibility, we create choice, right? Now you have a choice. With choice comes freedom. You have no freedom without choice. With freedom becomes power. You have no power without freedom. With power and freedom comes response ability. You have no ability to respond if you have no freedom and power. Right? In short, as the possibility field expands, we have more choice, more freedom, more power, more response ability. Right? And in that freedom, that power, that response ability, we can do what we consider beautiful, true, and good, right, or we can do what is wrong, what is ugly, right? Freedom is not real without the ability to go in both directions. Excuse me, sir, would you like to turn right, or would you like to turn right, or would you like to turn right? It's not a choice, right? Would you like to turn right in the middle, right in the left here, turn right and do there, turn left, turn this, turn that? That's a choice. With choice comes power. With power comes freedom. With freedom comes responsibility. With power, freedom, and responsibility comes creativity, the ability to create. Again, you have no ability to combine a little bit of this with a little bit of that with a little bit of something else. You have no ability to do that if there's only one thing, if you have no power, right? You're in jail, you're locked in a cell. Would you like to go to Paris or New York? It's, you have the freedom in your mind because you still have the ability to imagine, right? But you couldn't even imagine if there was only one place, right? And wherever you're looking, based on who you are, there's going to be some choice, right, that seems better than another if you add a value to it. Now, if you add no value to it, it's just all life. It's the one, it's the uninterrupted whole. And life is not identifying more with one part of itself than another. It just is. And it's getting bigger and longer and more complex. It's the most sustainable investment. Imagine how thrilled the investors would be if they had taken something this big and compounded it at an exponential return with no losses in 30 billion years, right? That's life. Life is a winner, right? So it's a very big plan. It's an amoral plan, right? Because as the possibility field gets bigger, it becomes more possible to do this as well as this. But it's also important to understand that it is a circular plan, right? The oppressed usually become the oppressor. And that goes round and round again until then you find, maybe there's a new position. Maybe we could be equal, right? That's more complicated. That's more complex than oppressed or oppressor. Now you have oppressed, oppressor, or equal. Now once you create that equal dynamic, right, a whole fusion starts to emerge in synergy and partnership rather than in warfare, right? So life is very, very, very big. It's not limited to the very, very tiny perspective of one person at one moment in time through one lens of perception. So the real question is, do you prefer a world that exists and continues to grow, or do you prefer a world that does not exist? Right. And if you cannot accept one piece of reality existing, having the possibility of existing, you have to collapse the entire possibility field. The probability field coalesces, emerges, condenses out of the possibility field, and the actuality condenses out of the probability field. If one thing that exists is so unacceptable to you that you would destroy it as a possibility, then the thing to the left and right of it, if you can think of it as a field, it is a thread, a woven thread, right? It is impossible for one thing to exist that does exist. You have to collapse the entire possibility field back before that possibility. Now, if that thing is, I cannot accept the way this one human being is behaving, it's just too much, right? I can't do it, right? Well, if you move life back before human evolution, then you can, and keep it there. Like it's impossible for humans to evolve. Because if humans can evolve, and there are billions of humans, one of them is going to be like that. One of them. Right? And if not that one, maybe another one, right? And if not this time, maybe another time. In a possibility field, it's so big, right? So I think it's clear that life has a plan to get bigger, longer, and more complex. And that as that emerges, the possibility field continually expands, the probability field continually expands. And as that happens, life will become both more horrific and more angelic relative to our values. And if we want to serve life, to be a part of iterating that, it is to move towards our unique values, our unique ideals, right? Our sense of what's beautiful, true, and good. Our sense of joy and ecstasy. And to make that probability field bigger. Understanding that in different parts of the universe and different parts of life, horrific things are also developing. As the probability field, as the possibility field, as the individuality, as the actuality field is expanding in all directions, we have more and more choice, more and more freedom. And we pray to the parts of the possibility field, it's all there, with our time, with our money, with our attention, with our feelings, with our actions. Those are our prayers, what we turn our attention to and serve with our time, our money, our natural resources, our emotion, our attention, our fixation. That tends to grow in some way. It tends to certainly grow in our experience. So we all have that freedom to worship the deities, to worship the ideals within the possibility field that we choose, that would not be a choice if the possibility field were not circular. So what do you think about that? This is obviously one possibility, right, of all the possible ways of thinking. Now, it suggests certain things. It's a possibility, a probability, in this case, an actuality for me, not an actuality for you necessarily. It suggests certain things. What does it suggest to you?